we've gotten to week 8 of our exploration of the 12 powers. They just keep coming every week. It's just one of those amazing things. And so we all remember that our 12 powers are like our spiritual toolbox, that they each have their job, but together is where we start using them together. That's where things get really good, because we need all the tools in our toolbox to be able to build the life that we want. And so when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about that saying that you've probably heard: knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. So, wisdom, so we've discussed understanding, that's sort of the knowledge part, knowing that a tomato is a fruit. And our understanding is our ability to see the whole pieces, the whole picture, and how all the pieces work, how they play with one another. And will, our power of will, is our ability to choose and commit and continue to choose that and stay connected and steadfast. And somewhere in the middle of all of that is wisdom, which is, as Linda writes in Divine Audacity, because she's my new guru, wisdom is applied knowledge, our decision-making capacity through mental evaluation, spiritual discernment, and moment-by-moment intuition. So, wisdom is when we take the understanding and figure out what to do with it, because we have all the information, and then we use our will to continue down the road and keep going. When Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote about the 12 powers, he called this power judgment. That was the original name of this power. But judgment is a word that has fallen out of favor in the last 100 years since Charles Fillmore was using it. Often judgment is used in a negative way, and so that's why a lot of us have kind of switched over to using wisdom instead of judgment. But if we look at the Merriam-Webster definition of judgment, it is there's a simple definition and there's a whole long. This is the simple definition. An opinion or decision that is based on careful thought. The act or process of forming an opinion or making a decision after some careful thought, and the ability to make good decisions about what should be done. That's the definition of judgment. There's nothing judgy about that. Therefore, while being judgmental is one use of judging, it is not only or the most important, really. Jesus said, "Do not judge lest you be judged." And yes, judging in a condemning way, not very helpful. Because deciding that someone's bad or evil is just another way we put up walls between us. And I don't know about you, but I make mistakes. And I would rather live in a world where I am met with understanding and forgiveness when I make an oopsie, instead of condemnation, because we're all going to do it. But to think that we don't use judgment is silly. If we didn't use judgment, we could decide what to eat for lunch, which car to buy, which book to read, or, y'all came here wearing clothes today, what clothes to wear. Or to even come here, right? So you just use judgment all the time. So, and most of us have probably used that old standby of judgment, the pro and con list. Everybody's used a pro and con list, probably. Now, this may seem very linear and straightforward way of looking at decision, and that maybe not even involving much spiritual involvement. But it is a way to find wisdom because it helps us clarify our thoughts, weigh information, look at the whole picture, right? So we're gathering information, using the understanding, using that to inform our wisdom. And while a pro and con list may not be the final step to making a decision, it certainly is can be an important part of the puzzle to see all the pieces. And just as we hope that a court judge would use all the facts of a case as well as wisdom to determine an outcome, we use more than facts to steer our life. We may ask the question, what is the right thing for me to do? Or if I was acting out of my highest self, what would be my best action? This can be called our conscious, or if you've seen Pinocchio, it's our Jiminy Cricket. This is our Jiminy Cricket power. We grow our conscious through years of making decisions. If you've been striving to make decisions from a place of integrity, like I'm sure most of you have, then our conscious probably defaults to integrous decisions. When, if we've not taken quite a shiny path, then you have a store of mistakes to reinforce those new healthy decisions. Because some of us learn which is the healthy path to take by taking the not so healthy path and realizing that that didn't work out so well. And some of us just figure it out the first time. Linda writes in her book about judging rightly, "You know you have judged rightly, for you are in heaven, in a state of peace, harmony, and well-being." And so when we judge rightly, we're striving for that feeling. When we know that feeling of peace and harmony, well-being, that's our state of heaven. That is one of the clues that tells us we're on the right path. Now the next part of wisdom is discernment. Now, many of us know, you all know, I have a lot of zeal. That wasn't news to anybody, right? No. Now, I have learned that to be more effective, I must temper my zeal with wisdom. And that's what discernment is about. Yes, it would be awesome for us to have a schedule for our church with things happening every day, and we could aim for that. That'd be awesome. I'm not giving up on that dream, but discernment tells me that that kind of schedule, to be sustainable, we have to build it piece by piece. If we try to do it all at once, we'll all get burnt out, and that wouldn't be very much fun for any of us, and not very effective either in our end goals. So wisdom tells me that while enthusiasm is good, I also need to know step by step, one piece at a time, as we're ready, we build those pieces. Trying to be do everything that a large church does overnight would, yes, burn us out, and it would probably be very irresponsible financially as well. So we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it step by step with enthusiasm. So discernment is a place of openness, including but beyond the facts. It's beyond the pro and con list. Sometimes we have an idea flitting at the edge of our thoughts, or sometimes something happens and we're like, there's something more to this, but I'm not quite sure what it means, or I know there's something in here. And being in that sometimes uncomfortable place of living in the question, it's not always comfortable, but it's a good place to be because we allow facts and other less solid pieces of information to just percolate for a bit. We just allow to be in the question, what is mine to do? Or what does this mean? Or what's the next step? And to just be in that place of discernment and asking the question. And as we do that, if we stand in faith knowing that the right answer will appear at the right time, it will. And then we'll know what our next action is. And sometimes using discernment is using our best guess to see about missing information. We may come across someone who's not acting in a way we find safe or healthy or kind. We can use our discernment instead of judging or condemning, using judgment in not the righteous way, but using condemnation or something like that is not very helpful. We could use our discernment to say, what is missing? What's the unmet need in nonviolent communication language? Is there something this person needs that I could help them connect with? They just need someone to hear them. Or, maybe they need whatever it is, if we use discernment, we can we can look for that instead of just saying, oh, well, they're out of whack. Now, the third element of wisdom is intuition. And this is our aha power. Anybody had an aha? Big ahas? This is our internal GPS, God positioning system. So, as we exercise right judgment and discernment, we are more and more able to recognize divine wisdom coming through. It doesn't look or feel or sound the same for anybody. I can tell you what my divine inspiration sounds like, and it may be completely different than how it is for you. But as we practice and say yes to following and listening to our wisdom, we get that feedback, and we know, and we get more used to it, and we know what it sounds like and what it feels like, and when it's the right stuff. Now, I just want to take a moment to say, we have all made less than wise decisions. It's how we learn. It's okay. Now, I grew up in a spiritual environment. Like I said, some of these songs I've known since before I knew them, before I could remember. Now, I've always had some suspicions about this intuition thing, because sometimes it seemed like the grown-ups in my life may have used it as an excuse for fear or not letting me do what I wanted. And so I was like, I'm not sure about that. Because my intuition says everything's fine. But when you're a kid, your intuition doesn't count as much as your parents, right? So when I was younger, I also made some, let's call them interesting decisions. And all I can say about those interesting decisions is, they seemed like a good idea at the time. Anybody made any of those? Yeah. And I could actually say one more thing about that, is that in that period of my life, first of all, your brain development is all wonky in your early 20s. But also, it was the time that I was least connected to my spiritual community, which meant I was least connected to the truth of who I was, which made it easier for me to make interesting decisions. And I share all this because it's easy to fool ourselves, especially if we're practiced at it. I mean, we can fool ourselves into saying, oh yes, this is the best decision. I know it is, because da-da-da-da-da-da. But you really know that it's not. You're just playing a little mind game with yourself. At least some of us have done that. So, and that's one of those things, you're on the spiritual path, you're like, oh yeah, that was my inspiration. You're like, okay, well, just because you had the thought about going to eat donuts doesn't mean that it was divine inspiration. It could have just been an idea. So it's part of the practice of knowing the difference. For me, when I get an idea about donuts, I know that it's not divine inspiration, because I know donuts equal heartburn. So that's me using the applied knowledge thing that we talked about. So on the question of divine or human inspiration, Reverend Linda says, if it leads me to a behavior that helps me sleep better at night, if it raises in purity rather than in confusion of my feelings, chances are it's a wise course of action. Is it God? Is it me? Yes, it is. It's oneness. So it all comes back to oneness. It always does. You haven't figured that out yet. That's the trick. It always does. So if we really believe that there's one presence and one power in the universe, then our wisest course of action is to practice and be more aware of that truth. Because as we break down the walls of our perceived separation, using our power of wisdom becomes more clear, more easy. Because we don't see the walls and the things we pretend are real, like the donuts or whatever it is for you. And we see the truth, the bigger truth. And of course, using that as we do the oneness, our ability to use all the powers becomes, it applies to all the powers, of course. So last week I challenged you to ask in every situation, what does love require of me? What does love require of me? It's a good challenge. We should keep it up. However, we're going to take it to the next level because, of course. So now the next question is what am I called to do from the awareness that I am wisdom, love, strength, whatever spiritual attribute is relevant in this moment? How can I use right judgment, discernment, and intuition to get at the deeper wisdom of this situation? Sometimes the answer is, I just need to sit with it a little bit, sit in the question. But when we remember to plug in the 12 powers, and that's why even though they're all one energy, we split them out into 12, is because they apply to different situations. In this situation, so part of using wisdom is to know which power to use. It's like which tool is the right one for the job. You're not going to use a screwdriver when you really need to use a hammer. Well, you can, it just isn't as effective. Don't tell Sue. So yes, ask, what does love require of me? But also ask the question, what power could I activate in this situation to bring forth more compassion, understanding, love, bring more peace to the world, bring more harmony to my life, whatever it is that you're looking for or wishing would be, what is the power that I call for? So some of that is wisdom to know which one. So that's the challenge. They're really great interchangeable. The powers are really great little interchangeables, plug-ins. So now that we're getting into, we're on the final run to the end, it's time to start thinking of all the powers, all the different powers as they are available. We've got 8 of them under our belts now. So, what does wisdom, how can I use my wisdom to get deeper in this situation? That's the challenge.